Hello and welcome everyone to the Friday night community Twitter space hosted by Brian Sweet, TM, and Ken, the local Flat Earth community Twitter members holding it down on the Twitter space. We're going to join them, see what the lads are up to.
And subjects and topics. I mean, when I really give it some thought, I've been told that the Earth is like, a big ball. And what do I believe? Well, I guess I don't have a verified belief. I can just repeat what people have told me. And I'm curious, like, what information have you personally found that leans you towards more of a flat Earth understanding or
Mic
belief, I
check.
guess?
What's up, Alan? I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that, but I couldn't just help but notice that you really didn't tell me what shape the Earth you thought it was.
Well, I don't really think. I think that thinking is ghetto. Like I'm talking about my beliefs here. The information that I have to calculate what shape the Earth is.
Did this dude just say he don't think?
Yeah, thinking is
Said that
ghetto, man.
shit's ghetto as hell, bro.
That's ghetto as
Specifically.
hell. All you people out there thinking and trash monkeys, man. That's all you are, thinkers. Bastards. Can't stand you guys over there thinking all the time.
So I'm fucking ghetto now?
Dude,
The hell?
Oh,
I think every day.
man.
You're
Ghetto.
ghetto as fuck. You should start
Dude.
acting. Stop thinking, start acting. I'm genuine though. Like I cannot verify, right? So if you're going to ask me what do I believe, I don't know. I do not have a concrete answer to give you.
Well, at least it's honest.
that's fair enough.
Dude, Alan is very hot coming in with your mic volume.
Oh,
I think.
sorry. Here, I'm going to move it
So
back.
then-
How is it now?
So
Tell me when it's the hot spot, the good spot.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Right
Yeah, you
here?
sound pretty good, man.
Got
That's
you.
perfect.
Perfect. Okay.
Nice. Now he sounds like a person instead of a super boss.
Super boss.
Yeah, so Nick, I'm curious then, because I'm assuming that you believe the Earth is flat, correct?
Correct.
What information did you receive that concluded you to that belief?
Well,
Or is it just opposite to like what you've been fed?
well, I mean, one could go that direction and be pretty good off in life because if you believe what the government's telling you, they're not telling you the truth. But the one of the main things that made me believe the Earth was flat was the lack of curvature. The fact that it didn't turn into a ball. We can see too far. And examples could be, such as the world record photo at 275 miles, which is impossible on a ball. Mr. Typer.
What if the ball was like huge though?
Well,
Ooh,
if that were the
what if it was
case-
a much larger ball? That would conflict with all the things that require a specific ball radius to use, because the coordinate system to use it is dependent on the 3959 radius value specifically. So anything
Yeah,
that
so it
deviates
simply
from that is couldn't be physical. It would have to be optical. So like you could refract and say like
So-
7/6R, giving you a bigger radii, but you couldn't physically have a bigger ball.
Wouldn't it
I mean, I
also
suppose-
change
I suppose you were-
astronomical distances?
Yeah, everything.
What's that, Meow?
Wouldn't that also change astronomical distances?
Yeah, it would change
Yes.
Everything's
The
based off
AU
center to center, right?
AU is based on the radius, which is based on how they measure everything, which is like measuring their candlestick. So it's like every distance in the known galaxy would have to be adjusted. So it's cool.
I mean, yeah, you could technically be right. It could be bigger, but like they're saying, everything else would have to change.
It'd have
And
to be
still,
like that, dude. Imagine having to explain why all the math worked with the wrong radius value. And people would just be like, "What? you,
it don't matter, man.
you can do what now?"
But still, if the Earth turned out to be bigger, as you're suggesting there, that would still be a lie. And like everybody's saying, all your numbers are based on the size of the Earth. So
I see.
Yeah, it turns out when you one of the
So
things
do
we
you
looked
guys-
into was geodetic surveying, because that's one of the big things that they say is like proof of the shape of the Earth, because they measure spherical excess with their triangles. And what we found is like they don't actually do that. They just measure the positions of the stars, and then when those aren't where they are expected to be, they go, "Oh, look, that must be due to the Earth being a different shape than what it should be." So they
Is
just like
someone Googling geodetic surveying right now?
it's totally cool if he is though, because there's no shame in Googling stuff.
Nothing like learning in real time, man. It's the best way, man.
No, we do it all the time. Yeah.
So then, if you guys were, you know, theoretically launched into space and you saw the Earth, would you still think that it was flat?
Well, the thing
Because like that's
is
something that fucks with me. Like if I was like Katy Perry and I went up
right.
into space and I looked down, I'd be like, yo, okay, I think that this is a fucking ball, as long as I saw a ball. But if I didn't see a ball and I just saw like a flat circle, I'd be like, okay, what the fuck's going on here? I think that's where my brain breaks. Like I don't, and again, I've never, like I live in Canada, right? So we don't launch rockets here or anything like that. But if I, was to see rockets get launched in person, and then had the opportunity to be in a rocket and get fucking flung into so-called space, that would do a lot for me in my own personal experience. But until then, I don't know if I have a belief.
Yeah,
It's interesting
so
that you bring up rocket launches
real
because I
quick.
posted. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. So there's something called contrast reduction. And if you're 2 kilometers above Earth's surface specifically, I can provide you all the math necessary to show where the horizon and sky become, or where the sky and the ground become indistinguishable from one another, because you don't have the ability to resolve with clarity which is which, because it just turns into a white blur. So once you're up, and because of that, that creates a limit of vision that's spherical, because it's going to create like the same thing that you would see on the ground or whatever, but you're just going up. So it's going to create the same kind of limit of vision. So if you go up, and what you're going to see is, you're not going to see like the whole ball. You're not going to see like a flat Earth forever in perpetuity. You still have a limit of vision. So that's still going to be represented in the same way.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you'll never be able to relate the alleged geometric horizon in between that white blur between the horizon and between the sky and the ground when you're at that altitude.
Well, it's kind of fucked up, because in reality, right? Like unless I can hold a tennis ball, I can hold it in my hand, I can confirm, okay, this is a fucking ball. I can hold it, I can see it, I can feel it, I can touch it. Because of the size of the Earth and the distance in which it, like, I would be able to perceive it, I don't even think it's possible for me to confirm that it's a ball unless you 3D scanned the fucking thing, like had
Dude,
something orbit it, around it. But genuinely, how do you confirm that?
Dude, I had the exact same question, because you asked earlier, like what made you into a flat earther. So I was asking this guy who runs a YouTube channel, who's like, he's an academic guy, and he his whole thing is like, he thinks flat earth is just like an educational gap. So you can ask him questions and he'll give you like, whatever the mainstream physics answer is, because he's got a degree in physics and all that, right? So I was asking him about like, how could we confirm that something's actually tilted away from you, like in that way, to confirm that the Earth is a ball? And he's like, well, on the ground, you really can't. And the only way that you could do it is through positions of the stars. And at the time, I really didn't understand the significance of that. But now looking more into things, and
Science that said that?
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
From way back when.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. And so like, the whole globe model is all built on celestial navigation, which uses latitude and longitude, which uses, which references, what was it, like the original 37 navigational stars that they used, or however many it was at the beginning when they first started it. But they had these measurements of the stars, and they told everyone that, the parallel light rays were coming in. And the only reason that they would deviate 69 miles per degree is because the Earth is actually tilted. So you're tilted away from the incoming starlight. And that's what's creating that relationship. So they've presented it all through this, where it can only be confirmed through the stars. So earlier when I mentioned geodetic surveying, they actually take terrestrial measurements horizontally. You know, they just look at the horizon, take some measurements, build a little triangle, and then after they traverse the distance to the horizon, crossing their triangle, they take zenith measurements of stars when they're transiting. And if they're not at the particular spot where they're supposed to be at the particular time, because their whole model is based off of positions of the stars and time, they literally introduce what's called an astrogeodetic deflection of the vertical, which just means that like imagine you just could tilt your telescope to put the star in the center of it where it needs to be, and you said, how much did I have to tilt it by? And then you just say, that's how much the Earth's a ball. So that's all they mix the two, and just doing that optically, you know, it really can't tell you if the Earth's a ball or not, but people just interpret it that way because of the use of the coordinate system requires you to use a radius of 3959, because they use two conceptual models, which is the celestial sphere, which relates to the stars, and they have the terrestrial sphere, which relates to the positions of those stars to the ground at a specific time. So to merge those two together, you have to use the radius value of 3959. And because of that, people, you know, just kind of interpret and internalize the use of said system is because the Earth is truly geometrically a sphere.
Couldn't have said it better. Nailed it.
So then, do you guys believe in space?
Not as told
No,
to
not-
us
not-
by
Not like you
NASA.
do. Yeah.
No.
No.
Okay, so then can you try to help explain to me how you look at space? It's not just like a black fucking void or whatever.
Yeah, so we don't know like
And by the way, I'm
what's in
coming at
there.
you guys with
No,
like
you're good.
genuine, pure curiosity. So if any of my questions come off as like weird, I apologize. I'm kind of like,
We say
neurotic.
space is fake and gay. We expect that to trigger follow-ups. That's cool.
No-
That's cool. We
Well,
get.
No, you're good.
did you take a look at the name of the title of the space there. That's one of the reasons why it's not possible. Gas pressure needs containment. We're in a pressurized system.
So in terms of like the questions being weird, they're not weird at all, right? Because what we're actually talking about is cosmology, right? Which is one of the most stimulating and fascinating subjects ever, because cosmology right now is taught to us as physics, and they're like you know how they have this illusion in America where they're like, we don't teach you know, we only teach science in school, we separate religion or whatever. And so like they've kind of made cosmology into like physics and like real, and where it's presented to you as like it's this factual thing that's separate from like a speculatory, like what could be in between the stars, what are the stars made of, because we know when we use our spectrometer,
it's-
we know what the star is made of.
taught in
Right.
laws, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And then so what we've done is we go through the backbone of like the fundamentals of like, what are these laws based off of? Who's, you know, what does this guy's name have to do with this law? Right. And then then so when we go through and relate all this stuff for cosmology in terms of like what the stars are, what the planets are, all we know is that they move and they in cycles, and the periodicity of that cycle, you can use pi to establish physical parameters to make conceptual models to explain where that like, you know, where that body is going to be, you know, at X month from now or whatever. But it doesn't have any physical meaningfulness in terms of like, yeah, that you know, the sun's actually 93 million miles away. It's like none of that stuff is real. And what they had to do to like to kind of get everyone to believe in that is, you know, basically merge fake physics, which is relativity theory, with classical physics, and say that, you know, you can't tell because every time you try to measure motion, you can't, and when we don't measure any, that's proof that we're actually moving. So they do this weird double reverse gaslight thing where they
Can
teach
you explain that to me a little bit? Like,
Yes.
what's so fake about relativity? Isn't that, I thought that was like actually a thing, like general relativity, or is it not?
Nah,
Well-
one of the biggest horseshit of all time.
Yeah, so
Okay.
yeah, so they started with the special theory, and the special theory states that the first postulate is that all inertial frames are equally valid, and it defines an inertial frame as a frame that's in uniform rectilinear motion, so just moving at a constant speed, no change, no curves, no nothing like that, no accelerations. So if you think of being on a train and it's an enclosed system and it's moving at a constant speed, if you're inside of the train, you're not going to feel any acceleration or any
Yep.
you're not going to everything's going to appear
you
normal.
do.
Well,
You
no.
do and you don't. If you try to think about it, you can kind of like start to feel it. You can feel the rails. You can you
So
can feel it if you
so
really give it some thought. Like if you sit and you're like, I'm here right now. But I feel like when you're in autopilot mode, yeah, it's pretty smooth. Like you
You
wouldn't
mean
be able.
via
And you
an
can
Einstein
jump.
thought experiment?
so
Sure, yeah,
so
maybe.
so the bottom line is, if you had a ball on a table, the ball would remain at rest, and then if
Yeah.
it was accelerating, then it would move to the back of the train on its own. So that would be like that's kind of what's being put forward here. So as long as the ball is stationary when you put it on the table, you're in an inertial frame as defined by relativity and Newton. So
Okay, so we are in motion. Gotcha.
yep. And then from that, they introduced the second postulate, which is that the speed of light is independent of motion of the source or the observer. So the speed of light is going to be the same as long as you're in an inertial frame. You're going to read the speed of light as being the same. So that was proposed as an explanation to an experiment that was done in
Okay,
18.
sir, I
Yeah.
love how autistic you are, but we're
No,
going to need to slow down a little
you're
bit.
good. You're good. Go
Okay.
ahead. You're good.
Light is, if you observe light, the light observer and the projector of light will not actually move with what was the first line that you said there? I just want to make sure I'm following.
Yeah, it's that the speed of light is independent of the velocity of the source.
Velocity of source. Okay, so if I have a lamp and I'm throwing the lamp, it doesn't change the speed of the speed that the light will eject from the lamp. That's what
Correct.
you're telling me?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. And
Correct.
whether or not I'm moving as fast as Flash or I'm moving as slow as a turtle, the speed of light also is not affecting me.
So that is what they want you to believe, but you actually measure
Okay.
the speed of light relative to your velocity, and that could be shown through interferometry, which we can get to in a second.
Okay, wait. So
yeah.
you perceive light based off of your velocity. Okay, I can confirm this. I'm a photographer, so if I take a picture at a low frame rate and I move my camera, I see the light move. I see the motion of the light. Yeah, totally. Especially if the light is still, right? I can actually paint. I can take a laser and I can paint with light.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, okay.
There's a whole art form about that, I think.
Huh.
Yeah,
because,
so man's created the fucking greatest tool on the planet, right? We have photography and videography. So if you want to do two things on this earth, one, clone yourself, right? So when we're producing video, it's the only fucking thing on the planet that allows you to actually clone yourself as you are. Because if I was to take a piece of your hair and grow a second you, that motherfucker would grow up and have his own life experience at some point, do his own thing. It's not actually you. If you want to clone you as you are, the only way to do it is to capture it through video. Now, if you're doing a video capture, you need to understand time. So if you're talking to me about some time shit, I know time, okay? Because the only other thing that video allows you to do is time travel. If you capture a moment and you create a fucking window of time, that's the only way that we've done time travel. Do you guys understand that when you open up a YouTube video, you're watching a window of fucking time? Do you actually comprehend that shit? So
yeah, I can see conceptually what you're saying, but you're kind of getting off on a loose tangent here. We were super on task about relativity and light and motion.
Yeah, but I need to understand it in my context. So a human brain can only comprehend 24 frames a second. You're telling me in a single frame that if I'm moving or the object is moving in that particular frame, the speed of light doesn't matter, right? In a single frame of time?
No.
That's the only way that we can perceive time.
No, it's not.
We're telling you that C is not constant and we can prove it. That's what we're saying.
Time is not constant?
C, the speed of light is not constant as required by the second postulate as just laid out by Alan, right? The thing that's required for relativity to be true
is not constant.
Yeah. So real quick, to make it easier, instead of thinking about light real quick, just think of a sound wave. If you're moving relative to a sound wave, you're going to hear a Doppler shift in it, right?
Doppler shift if you're moving relative to a sound wave, so like you can hear it twice or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's everyone knows, like prior to relativity, everyone understood that the speed of a wave is independent of its source, but the observer would measure the relative velocity of that wave based off of their velocity. And so,
Okay. So
and
yeah, if you had a sensor that was moving with the sound wave, like let's say a jet that was flying at the speed of sound, and there was a sound wave behind it trying to capture it, it might actually never capture it because it's moving faster than the sound wave, and the sound wave will eventually slow down, right?
kind of, but think about it like this instead. Let's say the jet's going a little slower than the speed of sound, and the wave finally catches up, but the speed of the wave isn't going to be the speed of sound. It's going to be whatever the speed of the jet was minus the speed of
sound. Yeah, totally.
Gotcha. Right.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Gotcha. So that was classically understood. Everyone's happy. Everyone's good to go. And then when they went and then they went to measure the velocity of Earth through space using light under the same principles, and they didn't get an amount that would correspond to the velocity of Earth that would back up all the math that they were using for Kepler's laws and Newton's laws.
Oh, so they were like, okay, so if the Earth is moving like a sound wave, it should be going this fast, and then they calculated it, and they were like, oh, that's wrong. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, kind of. That's
Okay.
pretty. But they were so convinced that they were already moving because they had all this fancy math to describe it, that they were like, oh, well, you know what? Light must behave differently. So we actually, for some reason, that relationship that you could measure with sound, for instance, using Doppler shift in motion, you can't do with light. They would say. They started to argue. Because that would be the only way that you could have the Earth be in motion but not be able to measure it.
Okay. But let me ask you this. Do you believe that light and sound act differently?
I
Because I
believe
would say
that.
they're different. I think light's faster, but I still think that you'd be able to travel at the speed and do the same jet silly thing, but like with a cool spaceship.
Well,
Like if there's a beam of light and I shoot a laser and then I have a fucking ship that can go the speed of light, I feel like I could chase it. Wouldn't I be able to chase it? If I go into like
yes.
hyperdrive or whatever?
Yeah, so I
That
don't
makes sense to
know
me.
about any of that, but like the main point to focus on is that the speed of it is measured relative to your velocity. Not and in relativity they say that it's independent of your velocity and it'll always be the same.
Oh, light specifically.
Yeah.
Wait, why does light get this play on some special ass rule? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Dude, right?
Now we're getting to it.
Indeed. Well, so what happened was a man named Arago in 1840 something put a telescope to the sky and he put a little crystal prism over half of it. And he was looking at starlight. And according to the laws of refraction that they had established at the time, the light, when it gets in the middle of that telescope, it's going to intersect with that crystal prism and it's going to refract. And if the Earth is in motion, when the light hits that prism and it slows down inside of it, the Earth is going to be able to move farther out from underneath it because the light's slow down in there temporarily. So the angle in which they would have to keep, the angle in which they would have to tilt the telescope to keep the starlight in the center of it would have to change when it hits the center, if the Earth's in motion. If the Earth is stationary and the starlight already comes in at an angle, then when the starlight goes overhead, there's going to be no change when it intersects that crystal prism, and they measured no change. So instead of like being like, oh, this is a huge red flag, we should take a further look at this, they concluded that the refractive index of a moving medium, which would be the crystal, assuming that the Earth is in motion at 30 kilometers a second, is the same as a crystal prism that's stationary. It's like, that's an interesting conclusion to draw. Because
yeah, that's weird, because you would want to know relative to the star what direction you're going, and then you need to calculate for that. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Hey guys,
because you have to calculate for all of it.
What's
If
up,
we're all in
Synergy?
motion,
Hey guys.
So,
Oh, this is an
One
interesting conversation.
one clarification. While we're all getting busy comparing the Kinneys,
This guy's voice is phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. While we're comparing how sound propagates and how light propagates, you should realize that there's actually an opposite between the two of them. That when we talk about light and we want to measure the speed of it, like Alan was just saying, when light moves through denser strata, it slows down. Whereas with sound, it's actually the opposite. The speed that we call Mach is a function of the air pressure through which it travels. That the higher the density of the air through which it's traveling, the faster Mach actually is.
Oh yes, because we are in air. What a fascinating
Well,
observation.
it's
Actually, I
not that
talk
we're
about this
in
all the
air.
time.
The point is that when there's no air, sound doesn't travel at all. And when there's
Wait,
less
what?
air, when there's no air, sound does not travel through a vacuum. That's why they say in space, no one can hear you scream. I'm sure you've heard that before.
But is that true? Like if we were to remove...
It's actually the opposite of how they propagate. You know what I mean? That sound requires a physical medium to create compression and rarefaction of the strata itself and move the energy through it. And,
Are you telling me that if you and I spoke in a vacuum, you wouldn't hear me?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you.
I can't. I feel like I don't believe you because I've never
First off,
spoken to you in a vacuum.
If you tried to speak in a vacuum, the vacuum, like any air that you had in your lungs, would immediately blow out of your body because of the vacuum outside of you. So you wouldn't be speaking long. Trust me on that one. The saliva in your mouth would instantly boil, etc. A lot of other things to know about vacuum, but I just wanted to draw the difference between sound traveling through a medium like air or water. You notice that sound travels much more quickly through water because it is a more dense medium than air. And with light, it's the other way around, that it travels the fastest through an absolute vacuum because it's an electromagnetic propagational vector, not a compressional.
Does that mean that if you and I were in suits in a vacuumed environment and I spoke into my suit, that you wouldn't hear me in your suit?
No, you could like bang yourself or pop your suit and I wouldn't actually hear it because there's no medium between us to transmit the sound.
That's insane.
But I would see you because the light blows through it like it ain't no thing.
There's a
vacuum. Like
there's a
just
famous.
wanted to get that clear.
Thank you, Stone. That. Well, real quick, I'll see if I can find the video for you. But there's a famous experiment you can do where you have a clock and a vacuum, or like a bell clock that rings, and you have a vacuum chamber and you put it in there, and when you vacuum it, the clock you can no longer hear it ringing. And then
Dude, that's incredible.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's on YouTube too. You can just YouTube that.
Yeah, it's pretty well established. Like Stone was saying, if there's no medium for it to rarefy and carry the energy through, or then nothing's gonna reach you.
Okay, and you're
saying that I put a link to the alarm clock in a vacuum chamber in the Nest up top. Okay. It's also in the purple pill.
I'm gonna watch that, but I would need to verify that with my human experience. I don't give a fuck about any video. Like I can obviously remove the audio in a video, but that's just like that to me is fascinating.
Sure, but conceptually,
I think what he does is he gets the alarm to go off, so you can hear it, and he turns the vacuum pump on, and you can hear the sound actually disappear.
Yeah, but I could do that. I could do that with anything.
I'm sure you can, but I mean, it's still interesting to look at. You can purchase a vacuum chamber if you want. It's a very small one.
I wish I could. If anybody is willing to donate some funds for me to purchase a vacuum chamber and record this and, have my genuine reaction.
Get in line, buddy. Get in line.
I would fucking go crazy. That would be the same level of delight. Like, I loved chemistry. Okay, in high school, I got 100% in grade 10, 11, and 12 chemistry. Absolutely love chemistry.
Nice.
When I turned a copper wire into pure silver and watched it turn into silver, it blew my fucking mind. And if you're telling me that, again, sound cannot travel in a complete vacuum, that's so fascinating. Like, that is absolutely fascinating. But you're telling me that light can. It just goes straight through it. So it's different. It has different properties.
It's literally a different mode of transmission. One is an electromagnetic transverse wave, like light. And the other one is a longitudinal compression.
Okay.
Yeah, and to kind of get us back on track here, though, so they were trying to use light to measure the velocity of Earth through space, and they didn't get the amount that they needed to when they did the experiment. So but obviously they knew they were in motion because of all their math and stuff and their philosophical beliefs. So they introduced the relativity theory as an explanation to explain it. So what they said was that those first two postulates that we went over earlier. So they said that even though the Earth's in motion, it's still defined as an inertial frame because the laws of physics apply to it. So like in the train scenario, we put the ball on the table, ball remains on table, inertial, even though we're in motion. And then he says speed of light's the same. So we're not going to be able to measure it if you're in an inertial frame. And then from that, they actually said that they introduced.
You're not going to be able to measure light if you're in an inertia frame. Okay.
I'm
following.
I'm sorry.
We're always in an inertia frame.
I'm sorry. You're not going to be able to measure your velocity with light in an inertial frame. I apologize.
You're not going to be able to measure your velocity with light. Okay.
Yeah, because it's always going to be the same speed. You're not going to have a distance difference.
A change. Okay.
Right. So it's going to hit you at the same time because it's going at the same speed. So there's not going to be any difference. There's not going to be any way for you to differentiate your velocity. So anyway, that's what they put forward to explain it. And that theory is demonstrably wrong. We can give lots of examples of the speed of light being measured plus or minus v, which just means velocity, and that velocity would be the velocity of the observer making the measurement.
I think he would enjoy my video on May on BitChute. Check out my bio and get a load of my BitChute channel. And if you like my voice, you can probably hear me sing a couple of tunes. I got a few up on there too. You might like.
Oh, I will definitely check it out. Nice plug. Shameless, and I I fucking love it.
Just at the right timing, I figured it's appropriate.
Oh, it was perfect. Right at the pause, so respectful. Major applause. Good voice. Respectful plug. That is incredible. What a good community. Okay, I need to continue this conversation. So it's dependent on the velocity of the observer.
Yes,
That's
sir.
What you're saying.
Just like any old classical wave.
Okay, and then does I guess the medium of observation matter too, because we would need to then also take into account our eyes. If we are the observer, right, we're trying to observe, we're trying to establish a law in which you can observe light, you would have to take in the fact that your eyes are an instrument the same way that your ears are an instrument to take in the compression of sound.
I don't think that's going to change the timing any, though. What the real issue here
I think it
has
would.
to do with moving target. Like the classic example that the normies like to use is they talk about the GPS system and they talk about, okay, well, we've got one station over here in New York on the East Coast. We got one in LA on the West Coast. And we're going to send a pulse from east to west. We're going to measure the length of time that takes. And then we're going to send a pulse from west to east. And we're going to measure the time that takes. You can see that in between those two moments, between when they send it and when they receive it, the Earth is allegedly spinning a certain amount of distance. And that the length light is allegedly traveling from west to east is supposed to be longer because the Earth is allegedly spinning from west to east, right? That's why the sun goes from east to west.
That makes sense.
That's what they're saying that's supposed to be happening there. Okay, so what we're doing is we're looking at the difference between those two times, and they are attributing, causally speaking, motion of the Earth to that phenomenon. But the problem is that the math itself doesn't actually add up. This is why I'm recommending you check out my MAME video. MAMET is the name of a Canadian physicist who wrote a paper on this particular subject. And I put his numbers down. I put his numbers into the formulae, and we see what actually comes out. And I deal with this reference frame thing a little bit up front. I think you might like it.
Is the output variant, or is it the same?
we're talking about the length of time, east to west and west to east of the two pulses. And if they are different, are we just going to leave it to the mainstreamers to attribute cause solely to motion of the Earth, spinning Earth thingy? Is that really the reason? Because you'll find that they're only
Well, I think there could be a
factoring
lot of
in
reasons.
one motion. Well, that's what I'm saying in the video, is that there could be a lot of reasons, like this thing, the allegation about not only is the Earth spinning on its own axis, it's supposed to be whizzing around the sun at 30 kilometers per second. And the whole thing is supposed to be doing 500,000, you know what I mean, over to the side at 60 degrees angle to that, and yada, yada, yada. You get into way astronomical numbers concerning velocity,
But I
right?
think,
But the
guys,
problem is when we
the
look at
other
that
thing is
original
also
measurement, east to west and west to east, those factors I just mentioned don't seem to be affecting the numbers.
Oh, they're not affecting the numbers.
Precisely. And this is where the mainstream mathematics break down. That's what the video is about.
Interesting. So then what conclusion are you getting to, that that light has a constant speed, or it doesn't? Or it's dependent on the...
Light obviously doesn't have a constant speed one direction measured to the other direction. This is the root of the problem. It's all about cause, and this is where we move into discussions about the
cause
ether
in the sense that, like, what propagates the light
at different speeds, different directions. Why is it a different length of time, east to west, west to east? You know what I mean? Why? Is it because the Earth is spinning, or is it because of something else? And people talk about what they call ether wind, and there's a whole other massive series of convolutions that we go through mentally in trying to argue about what we think that is, how physical it is, when actually it's actually more like an energy coefficient, if you want to think of it that way, in terms of propagation and what light does. But that's the direction you need to start moving with your thinking.
Talking about light propagation.
Light propagation. That's right.
Sorry.
Well, I gotta share my perspective. See, I'm a collaborator. I like to collaborate with people. So for me, it's always like a yes and situation. You know, somebody's sharing value. They're coming from a place of ignorance. I mean, that's where we all come from, right? That's why you need a village. You need a group of people to answer a question like you guys are trying to answer.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, there's not a single person who's going to be like, aha, I know everything and I know exactly what. No, that never fucking happens.
Testing noise limiter.
Obviously,
Testing noise limiter.
But gold comes from collaboration. So if
somebody
came to some sort of conclusion using some jumbled ass calculator, I've seen that happen so many times. And if we just tell everybody that they're wrong and they don't know anything, that's not like really collaborating. So I appreciate conversations like this.
Well,
it's been
I generally find
phenomenal.
that the normies, I find that they generally get into a lot of trouble when they start to use expressions like the math proves it. Watch out for that. That's all I'm saying.
Well, for me, what's really important is, like, I can't get away from the idea that I think it also matters the medium or the mode in which is observing the light, like not just the velocity of it. Because again, if you're using your eyes or an instrument, I don't know how quick the instrument is capturing the light in whatever equations that you guys are using. And I think that's extremely important because, again,
that's going to be a constant in both directions because you're perceiving with the same instrument, aren't you? That part's going to be constant.
Not necessarily.
Well, have you got a different instrument in LA compared to New York? Or you got someone with a different type of eyes in each town, or a different type of receiver? No, it's the same shit. It's the same hardware in both places, right? That will be the constant.
Okay.
All right, this portion of the show is brought to you by Fuck Einstein, and take it away, Nick.
You know,
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering because Stevie kind of kept on jumping around with different questions with this guy. We were looking for motion of the Earth? Was that what we were looking for?
We were talking about how relativity was dog shit because he was like, "Wait a second, I thought that was totally legit, guys, right?" And then we laughed at him, and then we went through the postulates, went through the speed of light, and we said,
But you're telling me that relativity
I think
is shit
with
because...
well, hold on a minute there, Steph. Hold on a minute there, Steph. I think we were getting to the point where Alan was actually trying to tell us why relativity even came into the scene and all that good stuff, and I'm not really sure he got to that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so they kept measuring. They kept trying to do starlight experiments with water and telescopes and stuff, trying to figure out if they could get that angle change that they needed to prove that the Earth was actually the cause of what they were seeing in the sky. And they never quite could. And then so they started coming up with theories that would say like, okay, because they were all ether theory lads at the time. So they were like, okay, suppose that there's ether inside of the telescope and it's bouncing around, it's carrying the light in the opposite direction, and it's making it look like the Earth is stationary. And everyone was like, okay, cool. And then a guy named Hendrik Lorentz came around and he introduced a mathematic transformation where if you assume that the if you assume you were in motion, you could do a transformation to basically say that in this frame you would predict no change, but if you were in a different frame you would see the change, and then you could swap between the two mathematically, and you could go, look, we're hiding the motion over here, but we don't see it here. You'd have to be here, but we're only here. So they kept playing this like shell game where like they transform from the sun to the Earth because of the relative motion between the two, and they would say, look, if you're on one you can't measure the other. Oopsie daisy. So they were kind of going along with that for a little bit. And then, and the important thing to note from that is the relationship established is, in terms of like direct effects. No, I was trying to explain like first and second order. So like, in terms of like a direct relationship to velocity, they were using a math ratio of V over C. And so to use that means that like the ratio is 1-to-1 essentially, right? It's directly related to the speed of light. Now, it's because they were doing experiments where they weren't getting the correct ratio to equal out what they needed to equal their velocity that they needed. They started saying, okay, maybe these first order relationships don't exist. And maybe we can't measure them because of these reasons that Lorentz is putting forward and this other guy with the bouncing ether stuff. So a guy named Albert Michelson invented a way to come up with a second order measurement where he would split a single light beam in such a way that it would create a cross to itself, and it would return on its path after completing that cross, and when it recombined, there should be a second order effect where it doesn't get canceled out by the ether that's mysteriously canceling out the first order effect because it's a return there and back trip. Does that kind of make sense so far?
I wish I had some sort of
visuals, yeah,
because I see a cross and I see a T. Yep. And I hear the word ether and my brain starts to fry. So like when you're talking about these ethers,
I can work with a cross. Okay, so check this out. We got the T, right? Now imagine the top part of the T is going to be in the direction of motion that the Earth is moving in, right?
Okay.
And then the bottom part of that T is going to be sticking out perpendicular to the side, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they were hypothesizing that the ether traveling with the direction of motion would be canceled out going there and back because of their mysterious mechanical mechanism as to why it would cancel out. So there's not going to be any change in that top part of the T. But in the side, but in the side that's being dragged, they were hypothesizing that on the there and back return trip, that there would be a drag effect, and that would show that would cause a timing delay when the light beam goes to recombine, and that difference would give them their velocity of the Earth through space at the velocity that they thought they needed to be at.
Yep, that would make sense. Okay. Yep.
Yep. So when they did that, they did get a change, but it was much smaller than the change that they needed, because by this time, using that method of splitting a light beam and recombining it, they had established that you could measure the difference in the what's it called, constructive, destructive, in the destructive interference pattern. You could measure the distance of that, and in the square of that is the velocity that produced that distance gap. So they had established like this relationship of wavelengths and phase and interference patterns to a ratio of velocity by squaring it. And so when they took their measurement and they squared it, they got a velocity that comes out to be 6 to 7 kilometers a second rather than 30 kilometers a second. So they needed a much bigger gap, but they didn't get the one that they needed. So with that, they had like, and the way that their apparatus worked, they could rotate it throughout the day. So they would take measurements throughout the day on different days. And what they found was that the speed of light would reach its, get faster and slower when it was aligned at certain times throughout the day that would correspond to kind of sidereal time, but nothing that would show the relationship of the 30-kilometer velocity. Ken, I see you got your hand up. What's up, big dog?
So
I
what the fuck
Didn't
does
really
that
want
mean?
to change the subject, but I said something earlier today based on memory, and I do believe I remember hearing that um, there's no relativistic equation for the Sagnac effect. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, there's no relativistic derivation for the Sagnac effect that doesn't violate the principles of relativity theory. They have to use a preferred frame to do it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And they can't have a preferred frame.
Correct. Mathematically
Yeah.
or real.
Well,
But
remember how we said relativity was dog shit? Yeah, this is how it is. First, it violates the postulate that it sets forth to go ahead and prove, and then immediately doubles back on it. So there's one.
Yep. And then to answer Steve's question, what exactly that means, it means that it means that when the light beam recombined, it wasn't.
Does the source of light matter? Like, does this shit still happen with like a Kelvin light bulb or a laser beam
Yes,
or
sir.
a candle? Like, it doesn't matter. It's the same shit.
Yes, sir. Part of the equation that you use is the wavelength of light that you're using. And then when you measure the interference pattern, it's relative to that wavelength. So the size of that gap is measured in the wavelengths in which you used, and the square of that gives you the velocity. Yep. And they've even done it. They've even done it with what's it called? Neutrons? Neutrinos? No. Yeah, neutrons. They've even done it with neutrons. They cracked open a nuclear reactor and set up a neutron beam such that it would complete a circuit, and they said that they measured that the difference in the completion of the circuit would basically it would fluctuate throughout the day, and if you plot that fluctuation against sidereal time, it makes a sine wave. So they interpret that as measuring the rotation of Earth with neutrons, but we would have a different, like Stone was saying, we would have a different mechanism than Earth rotation. But interestingly enough, everything electromagnetic does seem to obey this Sagnac effect relationship, where there's an east-west bias in the speed of light that manifests throughout the day.
And you guys are saying that because of this, the Earth is flat, that we're actually not being hurled through space.
No, this
No.
is all
This
still
is about
fulfilling the
motion.
relativity is dog shit premise that we started with.
Yeah, this
right?
is
We're still on
about
that.
motion, and we're
Remember?
not experiencing any of that.
Yeah, so relativity came about because they were trying to justify the lack of measurement of motion. That's what we're trying to explain through the basic history of how we got here.
Yeah. But like, that's because the Earth's movement doesn't actually affect the calculation of light.
That's what they would want you to believe.
Interesting. Okay. That's fucking weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really convoluted. The proof of Earth motion is this convoluted mathematical nonsense of reference frame transformation back and forth. Everything, all motion is relative except for when you need to be in the lab frame when you need to take the measurement. So it all comes down to relativity is like a mathematical band-aid that they had to come out and put up just so they could justify the lack of measurements of Earth's motion.
Did you go over the Lorentz transformation
Well,
contraction?
do we hit Michelson-Morley yet? That's probably a good one.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought it
what
was just-
that's what we just went over.
See, that's interesting. I didn't know any of that.
They don't really go through that in the mainstream science. They just kind of recontextualize what we just said and tell you what they think that they meant. with these
Fuck,
Yeah.
I
people.
don't remember anything that I learned in my optics class. See, I remember chemistry very well, but optics I don't remember. And I feel like there was some talk about how light moves and like in mirrors or whatever, but yeah, the idea that we are hurling ourselves through space and rotating, but then when you're trying to measure between the rotation or, the speed in which we're moving, and you use light as the, I guess, the source or the medium that you're trying to observe, then it doesn't affect it. What the fuck would that mean to me? Like, I don't know. Is it light that's special, or is it, yeah, we're actually not moving. We're actually
the
not rotating.
What it
simpler
means to
explanation.
you is that it starts you down the path of understanding that you've been lied to more than once about
Oh, but I've known that
reality.
my whole life. Yeah, like my
Okay.
parents were divorced when I was 1 year old, so like I've
Okay.
been lied to, since I was fucking born,
Well,
guys.
different kind
I
of
know what
lies.
that's like.
These are the lies we pay to learn.
Oh, I see.
We go to
Yeah.
school and we prove that we're intelligent, and then they teach us all of these lies, and they take our money and they give us a sheepskin and tell us that we're knowledgeable. This is the beginning here where we take a look at the mainstream's misappropriation of conclusion in regard to Michelson's data, where it says by the math, when we look at these interference patterns, it should be telling us that we're moving along at 30 kilometers per second whizzing around the sun. However, because it only came to 5 or 6 kilometers per second in terms of the measurement, mainstream considered that a null reading, as in no motion. And that necessitated Einstein's move with Lorentz to come up with mathematics to explain why there was, quote, no motion at all. But it isn't the case. The entire premise upon which relativity is seated is broken, is a misinterpretation, and it's intentional. That's
What's the
path.
intention?
The intention is to disregard the fact that Michelson's data was not null.
It got
was
motion.
a whole different number because their model and everything they're claiming about heliocentrism here is correct.
And they actually got motion. They just ignored it all.
And you're never going to get a group of scientists whose ability to pay rent is based on those lies to admit anything else is true.
But why? What's the benefit? Isn't it
I just told you,
more
it's the
important
fact
for
that they are able to pay their rent by preserving the lie and keeping the narrative the way that it is. There you go. That's the motivation.
It's always money, man. Money and
But
power.
wouldn't they be able to pay their rent with like the truth too?
Not
No,
if the
never.
guys who
No way.
have the money are not interested in letting the truth out of the bag.
Who's
The
gonna fund? What's there to fund if they tell you the truth? Suddenly, there's no space, so that's all. No space program. I mean, I mean, you're taking a lot of stuff out there.
Well,
You don't
can't
have
there
to
be a
want.
yes and where like the
No,
calculation's
it's not
wrong,
yes and.
Well,
relatively
Steve,
like
Steve,
busted, but we're
if
still
We're not
flying up in the air?
intellectuals, man.
regardless of your beliefs, Steve, if it is finally announced and confirmed that the entire NASA program has been a farcical lie, money laundering program since the beginning, aren't you going to want some of your money back?
Yeah,
Well,
that would
he
make
said
sense.
he said he's Canadian. Do you guys have to pay for our space program too?
I
Oh,
mean,
there's a CSA. There's an affiliate in Canada. Don't kid yourself. Remember the
oh,
Canadarm?
Do you guys
there's a
have
Don't
lot of
kid yourself,
taxes
boys.
here,
There's all
guys.
kinds of
Lots of
space
taxes.
dollars being spent in Canada. The Canadarm is just the beginning of that part of our
You know,
industry.
we created the
Absolutely.
International Space Station, so
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's a multi country.
that's our thing. We made it.
Yeah, it
I'm
was an
claiming
international
it.
effort.
I'm claiming it. That's ours. You know, that's what they told us. I'm just kidding. I I think it's fascinating because you're right. Like, I mean, if it's all a lie, if it's all just like a production for production's sake, because, you know, wonder and imagination are fascinating things. We all love to tell stories by campfires, right? Like, life would be so much more dull if it was really, you know, your drywall is like a cardboard and, you know, space is a lie and, you know,
You know
we're
what?
actually
Regarding
eating
that point
worms
you just
packaged
passed
in
by,
McDonald's. Like, that's all kind of
I,
sad.
I think you are a little bit glib there in terms of paradigm and what people enjoy around the campfire, telling massive stories that aren't true because they're so fantastical. I would disagree. When I'm sitting at a campfire with my buddies, I like to tell them things that actually fucking happened.
And most of the time, it's fun.
But I
So,
don't mean actually happen. I mean, you know, when we talk
so
about gods and when we
do you
talk
think
about
we went to the moon and played golf, made phone calls, and drove a dune buggy?
no. When I watch that footage, I have a very hard time believing what I see.
Well, I mean, why would they fake that?
You know, I guess peace. I don't know. You
I
guys
mean,
were going through like a war, no?
Peace. I like that. Peace.
there was no. We weren't in. I mean, were we in a war?
For
Probably. I
safety.
mean, we've always been in a war.
They had to fake it for your safety, bro.
And to fake it for our safety, for peace.
Just like COVID and everything else, and shots and everything that they fake now. Whatever. It's all for you, really.
The politicians would have you believe that we were
I
in a
wouldn't say
Cold
that
War
it.
back then.
I
Quote.
wouldn't say. Don't misconstrue what I said. I didn't say that it was for us. I said it was for peace, right? Because when you're seeing images of like babies dying and explosions and like the bad man, the boogeyman, like, you know, things are gonna happen, blah rah rah.
Shit, a round of golf on the moon takes that all away.
When I
I
see
think it
that, I
does.
look around for
I think
members of
for
the
some
CIA
people
and the IDF.
it does. I
Just
think
your
for some
fellow
people it
friendly CIA
does.
agent here.
And it did, you know, like I don't know.
I think
Humans
it does. I think it does. I think
humans
watching people go to the moon, makes everybody forget about all the babies being killed.
Well, I think there's hope for you if you don't believe that garbage. So, like, the basic distrust of the people who will feed that to you as truth is probably where we can find common ground.
I mean, like when I watch Interstellar, you know, Interstellar is like the moon landing on fucking steroids and crack or The Martian.
Science fiction nonsense, dude. That's what that is.
Event Horizon was
Yeah, but it
go for that.
but it feels good. It feels
That's time
real.
travel
It
via like fourth
feels
space-time wall violation nonsense where he starts his
hell
own journey.
yeah.
That's
Hell
It
yeah.
retarded.
feels like
That's retarded,
species
dude.
superiority, right?
Hey, I still watch Star Wars, man. I still like it. I mean, it's all totally fantasy. I mean,
Now we're talking.
I
That's much
hear
cooler.
people, still play Dungeons and Dragons, but ain't nobody got a dragon flying around their basement.
So yeah, what I'm touching on is this like this human value that we have outside of pragmaticism, productivity, and like the truth, right? Sometimes we like a little fantasy. We're sinful creatures. We
Yeah,
like to dance with the
That's
devil.
ego.
That's like that's what
this
we
is
do.
not even close to allegory as to the fact that we're being taught we're on a spinny space ball hurling through the galaxy.
Allegorious is great. I'm gonna find a way to use that phrase.
I mean, come on, man. Talking about singing. I don't know. So anyway,
Yep. How about those Chinese? Anyone ever wonder what they're up to? Last I heard, the Chinese were up to something involved in Wuhan, but I recently found out something much cooler that they were up to before that. Does anyone want to hear about that? Oh, did I lose mic? I mean, audio? 1 second.
You're still
No,
good.
you just got enthusiastic. That's all.
So when you're by a campfire, you only like the truth, only science talk, no fantasy, no dragons.
Well, that wasn't exactly said either.
Well, no, we just don't like speculative particle physics based on particle wave duality, where things may or may not exist in a scientific quantum with vacuum energy and background energy that doesn't
In an
exist in
ocean of
mathematical
presumption
placeholders.
and assumption.
Right, that's all we're talking about. We don't like
Oh,
that kind of shit.
And we're
I
paying for all
love
this
this,
too,
dude.
man.
You guys are
Even to
fucking
get all
awesome.
these schools out there up and running and stuff, you got to pay property taxes to fund those schools. So if we got rid of the schools, we wouldn't have to pay property tax. So I mean, there's just another reason for us to homeschool.
That's correct. Yep, that's correct.
So I mean, we're paying.
Answer to have the true answer.
Yes,
The truth is important.
yes. Being lied to
Okay.
sucks. I'm not a big fan of it. When people
Now-
lie to me, it makes me go, I don't like that.
Let me ask you some things. If
Mic check.
I'm assuming like some basic mathematics and stuff, even right? Like this is why we're having this
Mic-
intellectual conversation,
mic
like
check.
2 + 2 =
Cool.
4 type shit.
Yeah,
Still
hot,
yeah.
Alan. Yo, Steve, mathematics are something that is not a thing to be believed in. Okay, you got to catch yourself with your nomenclature sometimes. It's self-defeating.
What's self-defeating about it?
I mean, it sounds spiritual, like you have to believe in it, like a
We
religion
do
or
not
whatever.
believe in mathematics. That is not the purpose of mathematics, to seek your belief.
Because
Yeah,
you
it's
can
a
math it out doesn't
description.
make it true, man.
Yeah, we can describe it. Matter of fact, we like basic
Well,
trig to
no,
use the
that's not
self-heal.
that's not correct. What the hell are you talking about? If I tell you that I'm going to give you 1 hamburger and then I give you 2 hamburgers, you know, our realities don't match up. You don't trust me anymore. If I give you half of a hamburger, then you don't trust me anymore. That's just how it is, right? We're humans, so we need to use mathematics or nomenclature and language to
I didn't say
bridge
you couldn't
perceived
do it. I said you couldn't
realities
use
and
math.
But
expectation.
Steve, to correctly apply your issue here, it's not like you believe in mathematics and I don't, and therefore there's a problem here. The problem is that you didn't give me enough hamburgers.
And the problem is that I said you could
Okay.
make math, say
Well,
whatever.
some people
There's an equation out there though that
I
can
suddenly
make it
find
actually,
myself wanting the hamburger.
Like, oh, I get it now. That wasn't.
but
Okay.
some people would, you
But
know,
there's
identify
probably
themselves
but you could probably
as
math that out to say that he did get the whole hamburger. You just have to do some Lorentz
Dude,
transformation.
Oh.
Yeah, well, you can add a
Yeah, you have
factor and a
cheese
coefficient
transformation.
that'll retroactively add that hamburger right
If you
back
add
in
in
there.
some gamma, I mean, seriously, that's what I'm saying. You can math out anything to get whatever you want.
Especially if your tray is moving.
And
Oh
the
my
trays
God.
moving.
Now, if you're moving in a circle, dude, you have to have an entirely different theory. You use nonlinear field equations.
You got to go general on that shit.
Oh man, I love jesting at the expense of relativistic stuff.
So
It's
that's
fun.
why we don't believe in space. I think that's how we started and
Yeah.
how we got here. Right? He was like,
Moral of the story. Moral of the story. The guys on the ground kept
does
trying to
it-
measure space, couldn't do it, or the Earth moving through space, couldn't do it, and then for like the
Well, I'm
next
curious,
80
like,
years,
when
they
does it
just
break?
lied.
When
So,
does it break? Like, when
Oh,
does
I-
the math not math anymore? Because to me, right, like you can measure the speed of a tennis ball flying or whatever, and we get the
Can
right
you?
answer, don't we? Or
I
are
don't
we
know,
just
but
like, oh, fuck
regardless, space is
Stupid.
and I got to tell you, man, space hit me the hardest. That's what that was the first domino to fall for me, man. Once you realize that space is fake, man, it all comes together, man. But we do have David down there, a new guy.
Just before we do, as an epilogue to this, Steve, I would say that when it comes to relativity and the advent of it on our timeline in a civilization here, it's not like we just figured out that he was full of shit recently. You'll find that maybe 3, 4, 5 years after he came out with his modified relativistic theorems, there was a book published by 100, and this is the title of it, 100 scientists who think Einstein is absolutely crap. And like, these are physicists who are just as prominent in their field as the people we remember from back then. It's just that they weren't promoted because they weren't pro-narrative. The opposition to relativity was almost immediate from the scientific crowd.
Interesting.
Truth is out there. It's just
So then,
buried.
is there an answer instead of relativity?
Yeah, the Earth's
classic
stationary.
Newtonian.
The Earth is
It's
stationary.
dude.
You know what solves all those problems? No
The Earth
motion.
is moving.
Yeah, very easy.
You don't got to do none of that math if the Earth isn't moving.
So then, what are
that
we
makes
in, like
sense.
a vault, like in a huge ass Fallout vault, or like the Matrix? Like, what is it?
It's just a flat, stationary, non-rotating plane, man.
Oh yeah.
It's just a stationary, non-rotating flat plane, man. Like, no,
Yep.
that doesn't make any fucking sense to me. What do you mean?
What you mean?
Like-
Where are you if not rocketing around the universe with a billion gas particles formed by galactic accretion from mass attracting
Yeah,
mass and particles
exactly.
that's going into the
Yes.
I mean, if it helps, you can think of it like a snow globe.
A snow globe.
Maybe we're in
but,
that
like, what's
locker in Men
outside
in
of the
Black at
snow
the train
globe? Is there
station.
nothing
Well-
outside of the snow
Well, how
globe?
about this?
No, we're
Instead
just
of
in the
being a
locker.
totally
Get to watch.
accidental galactic fart, right, with a unicorn spiraling came out of nothing, you're actually the center of everything and all of creation in the basement.
I'm
of the
sorry,
universe.
David.
So
We'll get to you in a second.
all of astrology
Yeah, I was
suddenly
just
makes
thinking.
sense. Stars are all local, like it's not billions of light years away. Everything is here above us, and everything rotates around you because you're at the center of everything. Isn't that a different way to look at it?
Yeah, it's like super conceited though.
Yeah, maybe.
Is it?
Maybe.
Conceited. We're like humans are like the most important creation here, dude, for sure, for damn
That's
sure. And they
because
do-
you've been too used to thinking yourself as worthless.
yeah, they
Hey,
do a
David,
lot
what
of
up?
work.
What up, man?
They do a
Yeah,
lot
what's
of work
up,
to
David?
make
How
you
you
think
doing,
that.
man?
Hey guys.
Okay, so that's
Hold on,
the
real
belief.
quick,
Wait,
Steph.
hold on. That's really good. Wait,
Steph, Steph.
Go ahead.
Well, let's hear from David real quick.
Yeah, so one of the I've been in this now. This is about 10 years since my life got turned upside down back in
Oh gosh.
2015 when it was Mark Sargent, Nat Boylan, or Matthew Powerland, Patricia Steer, Eric Dubé. Yeah, I was there for that. And one of the reasons why the moon landing, what was produced from the moon landing, was the image as Earth as a ball from space. Because people could believe it then because they saw it on TV, right? But if you watch the movie Capricorn 1, you can really see how easy that is to fake.
One of my favorites.
So that was one of the results of going to the moon, and that put the mind fence in everybody's mind that, okay, well, if it was a flat plane, if everybody thought it was a flat plane, and you and your buddies wanted to go and buy a nice boat, and go and check it out, well, you'd go and do that, and if you found land, there would be land that people could go to get away from, the tyranny that is, to a degree. I don't think President Trump is part of that, but that was a big deal of going to the moon, was to produce the images Earth as a ball from that, and that was a great piece of propaganda. So that was one thing that the moon landing accomplished. Now I believe that we probably have the tech, because if you've gone on a lot of flights, right, you've seen, especially at night, and if the moon is there, it does not look like it's that far away. So it wouldn't surprise me if we've been there. But like Capricorn 1 says, it's very easy to launch a rocket and then have the TV do the TV version and the rocket do the
So do you
rocket
think we
version.
went to the moon or not?
It wouldn't surprise me if we did, but whatever the official like visuals of that was not real. Like I don't believe that for a minute. But it
There's
would.
video footage from one of the Apollo missions. I forgot the name of it. The video was
See,
a funny
this
thing
man's
happened on the
talking
base
my
on Moon,
language. He just
and there's actual
described
footage of them
a
manipulating the
classic
window.
yes and baby. Because you're right. They would be like so stressed about these astronauts are not videographers, they're not photographers. We're using fucking amalgamated film, okay? How the hell are
That's
we
right.
gonna
And
get these? Yeah, all those
Well,
the
props. How do we
would
line,
the
solve all
film
that shit?
even survive the intense cold
the,
and heat and all the radiation of space?
and if you run the military, I don't know what everybody's life experience is here, but if you're in charge, and you've been lying to people, and does the government lie? Yes. Does the military keep secrets? Yes. Do the lying secret keeping people take you on the first trip they go somewhere they've never been? There's no fucking way they're going to do that. That is just not something that is in reality. That is not something that responsible adults with that mindset would do, right? Like, so
I think we
right on
did
the
that in
face of the
Desert Storm.
premise.
Didn't we bring a film crew when we had hit the beaches in Desert Storm? I think we did. I don't know, man.
Yeah, but that was
So you think the moon is you think space is real there, David?
I probably parts of that are. I'm not gonna try and point to something that is, but in terms of like all of the when you go through it with a fine tooth comb, right? The devil's in the details. When you go and you realize, hey, why is that piece of metal curved? Oh, the lens is fisheye, and that's what's making the earth in the background look round. When you start to parse through that stuff, like it wouldn't surprise me, if they've got, some vacuum suit
But
tech, and they
guys, our
can put
eyes
people.
are curved.
So I'm
Wouldn't that
not sure if
fuck
I
No.
got an
everything
answer out
up?
of that. Do you think space is real? You think you can go out there and exist in a vacuum?
I
Go
think
out
if you
exist in
had
a
air
vacuum.
supply and a sealed bit from
All right,
the
well,
vacuum,
would you trust
then
your junk to a
probably. But
space zipper?
sorry.
Would you trust your junk to a space zipper?
Well, exactly, right? Like,
Well,
And
like
all
yes.
the
if it
all
is not.
those aren't one
But I mean,
piece.
the people go
Those aren't
underwater,
one piece
right? Like
implants.
way underwater. That's got to be, that has to be sealed too, right? Like when you're walking on, the
But with a
ocean floor and
zipper?
that. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to get into the minutia of, how to design a vacuum suit. Like that's not my,
Well, it's not
right?
with a
Forget
zipper.
the
That's all
suit.
we know.
How about
Yeah.
the craft, Dave? I'm sure you've seen pictures on Earth of vacuum chambers. They do industrial sized ones with like a 5-6 foot diameter.
Do you guys think
And
that
the
SpaceX
puppy
is
is,
just like a
hey,
propaganda
dude, I'm
machine?
talking.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thanks, man. And like the things about, 14, 15 feet long, 5 foot diameter. And have you seen how they have to build those in order to produce vacuum inside that with a pressurized atmosphere where we live on the outside of it? You know what I mean? That steel has got to be about 1.5 inches thick, and the whole surface is ribbed so that it's
Yeah,
all reinforced, right? So that it doesn't implode under vacuum.
yeah, that's right.
Okay, so
That's right.
consider the opposite of that, all right, where you're pressurized inside it and there's vacuum all around you on the outside of it. How tough would you have to build that to keep it from exploding? Okay,
Yeah.
now flash to every spacecraft NASA has ever claimed to have built. Did you see any of that in their designs? I
Yeah,
haven't.
that's right. Yeah, it does
Not
not
a
look
fucking
like.
one.
That's right. It does not look like any of that would meet, that spec. So,
15
but I mean, does
psi,
that
all
mean
of the
that they
inside of it
don't
is a
have it?
lot.
But
Like, think about it. People say quickly things like square inches.
Yeah.
And I don't see any fucking reinforcement along those fuselage pieces. You know what I mean? I just see the cylinders
And every once in a while,
themselves.
you see a bubble.
Right. Well, you see a bubble too. But the point is, you don't see anything
That's
on
right.
this craft that is going to keep it from exploding at
Yeah,
15
that's right.
psi all over the surface, right? It's ludicrous to consider.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, would you consider that it could be real, but they would never show you the real one? If it is like a big secret military thing, like they would
Well,
never actually
you know,
present
the
you with the
economics of
real.
NASA is all about a cost per pound to throw things up into quote orbit. Can you imagine how much it would cost?
Be surprised if stuff like trickles out. No, but you know,
I just find a
yeah.
conversation like this fucking fascinating. Yeah, this is interesting. So then is
Because there
SpaceX
would be
just
a
like a
rush for land, right? There would be a rush for land because anybody that had guns and ability and friends, if you had a doctor, a geologist, and a farmer, and a rancher, and a couple of breeding pairs of whatever, you're taking an ark and you're going off in search of land, right? So the people that are running the show right now have a really a real hot potato where who's gonna stick around and pay taxes to fucking losers when you have enough technology to go out on your own. So
But do you? All of this is based on the mainstream presumption that when we look up at the sky at the moon, we're looking at a ball of rock 250,000 miles away. Okay? You have
what
to start there.
well no
I'm
like
starting there,
I'm
but I'm
saying if
curious,
there's
like
go ahead.
tangibly, SpaceX and this like Falcon bullshit. Does that meet the requirements that you guys are talking about, and like the steel and the reinforcement and what you would need for that rocket to actually go up there, or no?
No, not
That's a
No?
good question. I mean, I can't tell that by looking at it, but when Elon said it looked fake because it's real, come on,
if
buddy.
if he's
I love
pretending to use the same thrust in free fall to stop these things going from thousands of miles an hour straight down to nearly zero and comfortably bump the earth as they land back on it again. If you're going to pretend that they're in that weight class, then no.
Okay, that's very interesting. Then that's fucking fascinating.
Pretty cool when you start to apply real figure, isn't it?
Yeah, space is fake and gay. All of the math exists as a basic ratio.
So,
of
have you
the-
guys ever gone to like one of the launches over there, or no?
I have. I saw a launch from Kennedy Space Center, and then I saw another one from my hotel room that I was in, and it was on television at the same time that I was watching it. And I was watching the TV, and what the television showed and what reality was showing were two different things. So
Really?
yeah. Yeah. They
Okay.
were. It was two different things. They showed the rocket going through like cloud on television, but it was a clear day. Like I was in Orlando, and once the rocket took off, you could watch it come up, and there were no clouds that day. That was just like
No shots, no angles shown to you longer than 4 seconds long, so you don't
That's
get
right.
any
Yeah,
grasp of
that's
how
right.
fast it's
That's
not
right.
going yet. But what I
Yeah.
really like are the videos they shoot of children who come to the launch. Their
Yeah.
reactions are priceless. They
Well, it
simply
is
look up,
nice,
they
right?
say it
They're
so
excited.
simply. No, they say, look, it didn't go up, pointing with their finger straight up in the air. It went over that way, pointing
Yeah,
nearly
that's right.
horizontal with their
That's right.
finger. right?
They all
It
go
didn't go
sideways.
up. It did. It went over there, and then it
Yeah.
kept going that way. It didn't go up.
Which is in Interstellar, right? Because in Interstellar, when McConaughey walks into the launch room or whatever, right, the screen goes sideways. They launch the rocket along to go to the next area, right? So, there's that, that, yeah. But if they opened it up and they said there was a new continent, or new continents, who's sticking around to pay taxes to,
And then some.
right? That's
Well,
yeah.
if it's a globe, snow globe, like somebody suggested that it was like a snow globe, do you think you'd be able to hop from snow globe to snow globe? And that's what they're trying to like create the technology for, or is there genuinely, just like no space? Because
I
see, that's
would
where my brain breaks.
I would expect there's probably like a different ambient, like kind of like if you've seen the movie Total Recall and you could put like the Noah's Ark event together, you could maybe imagine, an infinite terraplane. Actually, Infinite Plane Society. That was me back in
No.
2016, and they ripped it off. But anyway,
I mean, that's
but
science
if
fiction, right? There is
if
nothing.
you put a giant field generator at the North Pole, right? The North Pole is a giant magnetic field generator. If you had that and it turned off or it turned on, that could explain Noah's Ark and the rain, right? Because in the Bible they hadn't seen rain, and everybody's like, "Why are you building a boat?" Right? Like that'll never happen. And then something happens,
I'm
and
not
the
sure
whole
that they never saw rain before.
well, but they still looked at him like he was crazy for building a boat. Like, why would you even
Regardless of
imagine a
that,
boat?
rain was a thing before.
Maybe,
Way back
maybe
then.
not. They hadn't seen a rainbow. The rainbow was remarkable after whatever the change was during the Noah's Ark.
I think you guys
Saga.
take all of that so far too literally. The Bible is full of allegory, but when you're presented with them, you start to literally dissect them as if that's actually how it happened. Noah's Ark is just an allegory for repopulation. They're telling
Yeah,
you a pretty story about how things were washed away. There's no evidence that everything's washed away except what's been manufactured by the narrative to back up this story. Okay? This is all about how something cataclysmic did happen on this surface upon which we live. Oh, that's no question there.
yeah,
There's
that's
a
right.
lot of different skeletal types that just suddenly stopped in terms of their lifeline. Yeah, there's a lot of buildings we didn't build that just sort of come out of the ground when you dig and look to see that they're fucking there. Like, yeah, okay. So the whole point about Noah's Ark and the two animals 2x2, that's just an acknowledgement of animal husbandry in the wild, or
Yeah,
or human domestic, and they're applying it to what they put back on Earth afterward.
yeah.
It's got nothing to do with who built the fucking boat. It's got nothing to do with it. It
I
doesn't have anything to
all I
do with whether
all
there's
I was
rain.
saying is there
You know what
was
I mean?
a big change, and whatever that big change was, if there are before that big change that occurred, maybe that was a different, oxygen content in the air and whatever, such that after that happened, only certain organisms had what it took to survive.
Definitely history of change of oxygen level and other gaseous percentages on
Yeah,
Earth over
yeah,
time.
that's right.
No question there for sure.
And you could imagine then if there was like a field generator that generated that change, that would be, the Van Allen radiation belt, or provide that snow globe version where there's like a field that if you aren't, covered in something to resist the field, maybe it's gold, maybe it's some other, right? Like to block whatever that field is. And until you get that tech, you can't go on the other side of it, and you can't turn the field off because we'll all die.
Well,
So
it's called a Faraday cage. Yeah, we've got
maybe
that.
that'll work. Maybe that works. I don't know. It could. That's right. slide everybody through in a Faraday coffin to the other side. But then what do you need on the other side, right? What do you need on the other side? Oh, we don't know. Everybody dies when they get there.
Just to interrupt for a second, Piezo, I sent you a mic invite. It didn't take when I gave you the mic the first time.
Looked like you got up.
There he is.
Thanks for letting me up tonight, guys. It's that was good. That was good. I hope you do it again. I miss Flat Earth Fridays. I miss them. So, okay. See y'all next week.
Bye. Yo, can you guys hear me now?
There he is.
Yep.
My gosh, Twitter being so bad. So, man.
2025 technology, man.
Yeah. Yo, just all that guy left, I was gonna tell him, just drop in the historical argument. Yeah, if you are like a Bible follower, believer, then technically from a biblical perspective, they did affirm the literality of Noah's flood and of Genesis. Jesus traces his lineage all the way back to Adam, generation by generation, and then affirms the flood of Noah and everything that happened. But if you don't, like, if you're not like a, Bible believer, it probably doesn't really matter for you. I was just, for those that are Christians, just to be clear that it is a literal account. But that's all.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah, I don't know about that literal account stuff.
Are you a Christian, Nick?
I believe in God, yeah, but I wouldn't call myself a Christian per se. I mean, there's technology in our past, and there's no mention of it in that Bible. And I think the Noah's Ark is a story of a reset. I think there's a lot of stuff that happened that they had to make it without technology.
I don't think the Bible identifies any particular technology, like you say. But the account that the angels were teaching men things that God had not designed them to know yet is in the Bible. It just doesn't tell what all those things were. So I don't really have a hard time believing that we, at one point, knew something that we don't know now. Most of that was wiped out with the flood, along with the people. And so it makes sense that might not come down, that knowledge might not pass down. But I do see where we could have had technology that we no longer have now, just based on the fact that the angels were teaching men things that God didn't design them to know yet. Anyways, that's just the way I see it.
I think the events could have taken place, but they just had to bring it in an account to where they couldn't say a big old DEW wiped it out.
Well, I mean, I think that it was water that wiped everything out, man. Like there was a giant flood.
At that flood with Noah, you're right, but I mean, like Sodom and Gomorrah, that sounds like a nuclear strike type of thing.
Oh, have you seen the modern day remains? That's actually super interesting. There's been several groups of people who have toured it and put little mini documentaries on YouTube.
Man, I've watched a lot of those things. Like I've seen one where they say they misread this one, or it's not the Red Sea, it's the Sea of Reeds, and they took a different path that showed it where you could have crossed here and there, and then you start seeing some other things that suggest this whole thing could have happened here in the continental United States.
Yo, lads and ladettes. Thank you for tuning in to the Friday Community Twitter Space. We're going to head off for the evening. Everyone have a fantastic Friday. Join us tomorrow for the Czech Prezi. We're going to do a Czech Jezzy Prezi. And we're going to go over the Chinese history for latitude and longitude and the old celestial terrestrial sphere and all that and the Jesuit influence. So that'll be fun. And then I'm going to do that again on Sunday for Globebusters. So check that out on Globebusters on Sunday if you don't watch it on Saturday or you haven't seen it yet. Or maybe you're a super fan of the Jezzy Prezzies and you want to see the whole collection of them and you're going to watch them all. I don't know, but I will see you there or I won't. And then, of course, Monday, we will return with the Celestial Theodolite update number 18. I think we're at the big number 18. Some proposals were made last week for the Globe side in regards to what is their prediction that are definitely in contention. So we're gonna see about those. And then we'll get into whatever else we were going to get into for the Celestial Theodolite update from last week. And then Tuesday will be a surprise. We'll see what we have going on Tuesday for the Aether Roundtable number 99. Number 99, guys. It's been an awesome journey. Looking forward to many more. We're almost at the 2-year streak, gentlemen. All right. We'll see you guys throughout the week.